topic is a wholesome approach to chronic illness. And we are so pleased to have Dr. Kimberly King with us today. Dr. King is a lifestyle medical practitioner, and we are so pleased to have her with us that she's going to share from her wealth of experience and knowledge and training. So let's dive right in. Thank you again for coming, Dr. King. We're going to start off with my first question. I have a whole list of questions here for you. What exactly is a lifestyle medical practitioner? And what were your qualifications? And how have you managed to set yourself apart from the others in this field?
Okay, so lifestyle medicine would be a recent branch, I should say, an arm of conventional medicine,
Okay.
which has come about really through the presence of the crisis in chronic non-communicable diseases, which we will be getting into today. So, conventional medicine and conventional medical practitioners have now realized or opened our minds to the fact that our lifestyle is directly impacting the presence of these diseases. So the practice of lifestyle medicine came out of that need, and knowing that in terms of how conventional medicine usually approaches disease is not in a holistic manner. It's more of a crisis um, type approach. So you come with a problem, we deal with that
Hmm.
problem, give you advice, and you go back home. But in order to tackle these chronic diseases, um, there needs to be a more holistic approach, a more integrated approach, maybe partnering with other healthcare professionals
Okay.
and delving into all aspects of the person's lifestyle to help bring around change. So,
Ah,
that being said, I
mhm.
am a conventional doctor. So, I have my MBBS from the University of the West Indies. And my practice evolved not only moving into lifestyle medicine, but as where I practice as a GP. So conventionally a GP,
Yes.
worked at a naturopathic clinic and worked
Ah,
very closely with naturopaths. So I had an intimate view because they were all, because everybody knows they were already into that holistic
yes,
approach
yes.
to dealing with their patients, as well as integrating herbal medicines and nutritional supplements to bring
Mm.
about changes in disease. So I have that exposure along with my MBBS,
Ah,
and I am currently so lifestyle medicine in terms of I think that being a medical practitioner is a lifelong process of learning. So I've been integrating a number of courses in lifestyle medicine to hone in on how I actually affect change in the areas of my patients' lifestyles
ah.
that can impact how they develop chronic disease. So that's
This
me.
is awesome. So you're kind of coming at it from both angles, from the traditional medicine and also from the more holistic approach. Yes?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
So thank you for that. And can you define for us what is a chronic illness really? And what are the leading ones that we have in the region at the moment?
Right. So I'll specify that a little bit more specific in
Yes.
terms of what I think you're um, asking of me
Yes.
is of chronic non-communicable
Yes.
diseases. So a chronic disease obviously would be anything that you would have for a long time.
Okay.
So it's something that is not acute, like a cold, you get a cold,
And it goes.
a week later,
Yes.
you're back to normal,
Yes.
right? So that's more of an acute illness. A chronic illness would last a little bit longer. So there are multiple chronic illnesses in terms of the chronic illnesses we are plagued with within our nation and regionally and worldwide are the non-communicable ones. And by that I mean that they're not communicated from me to you. It is all you. It ain't got nothing to do with if somebody sneezed on you or coughed on you, touched you, anything. It
Ah,
has all to do with you. So it is not passed on to anyone else. And so those diseases would fall under things that affect the cardiovascular system,
Okay.
which would then move on to heart attacks and strokes.
Ah,
Those that would affect the endocrine system, which we know about, which would be your diabetes, particularly type 2 diabetes, because type 1 diabetes is a different story altogether.
okay.
Encompassed in there would be cancer and some other chronic diseases within the respiratory system.
Okay.
So those conditions, being cardiovascular disease being the number one reason for death
Wow. Mm.
worldwide. And so we have those top three things that are affecting how human beings live on the planet. And those are the more pressing one because they're the major cause of death and infirmity worldwide.
Well, we certainly do hear a lot about them all the time. So,
Mhm.
well, you just gave us some of the risk that can lead to death, and what are some of the impacts of these illnesses?
Right. So, like I said, as I went to medical school, they
Mm-hmm.
taught me a lot about how we develop disease.
Wow.
And so now we know that these diseases are linked to everyday habits.
Hmm.
So it's what you're eating, it's
Okay.
what you're
Yeah.
drinking, it's the thoughts you're thinking, it's how
Wow.
well you're managing stress, it's how meaningful your relationships are, it's if you're
Wow.
getting enough sleep, it's if you are engaged in risky behaviors like drinking too much alcohol or smoking. So, all of these things combined are feeding these illnesses and feeding the development of these illnesses. So, it's not like if there's one particular bad guy out there wreaking havoc. Yes, nutrition and lack of activity are heavily weighted in terms of their contribution to their this development, but there are other factors because we well know if you are very stressed out in your life, you might not be as willing or able to even stick to the dietary plan that you have. You might not be able to muster the mood to keep up with that exercise program that you've decided to get on. So if we are not looking at it from all different angles, although you know that you shouldn't eat this and you should really exercise, the life comes in and sweeps that one side, and we usually go the path of least resistance and we go with
It's
what we
true.
know. So we continue on with our habits even if we wake up January and we get that New Year's resolution.
Yeah.
Oh no, I gotta get back on it. That quickly fades, and by March, we'll be back to normal. So it is to make sure that people are aware of all the things that go into maintaining, not only starting,
Hmm.
but maintaining a healthy lifestyle, and knowing that until we can really get to that point of maintenance,
Yeah.
sustain good
Sustain.
habits,
We want
we are
sustainable
not
living.
going to get out of this crisis. We're not.
Wow. So I think that leads me to one of my next questions, is for the six determinants of health that you have listed on your website, because I think you just quickly went over them. Can you just
Yeah,
repeat
I just
for them
did
again?
quickly run through
Yes.
them
Yes.
actually.
Because
Yes,
I
but
think these
I'll
are so
go through them
important.
again.
Please.
Yeah. So obviously the head one that everybody knows about is nutrition.
Yes.
We try to avoid it, but I am sure everybody of our age,
Hmm.
adults, know exactly what is good for them and what is bad for them. I mean, there's a lot of information out there that might have the picture a little bit confused, but everybody labels junk food correctly and everybody labels fast food correctly. So everybody labels healthy food correctly. And if you can look at your diet and see that it's full of junk and fast food and very deficient in nutritious healthy food, then you know you're on the wrong track. However, is willpower, is your habits, is what you're accustomed to. So nutrition is big on that list. And so nutritional choices even from the time we are children, impact our health. So, for instance, and we know that there's a big crisis in terms of childhood obesity within the
For
Caribbean
real.
region, and regionally, there's a big push in schools and within the ministries to get children a little bit more active and improve nutrition in schools. And that's because, um, for instance, that number one killer that I was telling you about, cardiovascular
Disease,
disease,
yeah.
right? So high fat diets, high foods high in nitrates like processed meats
Mm,
contribute to the buildup of plaque and fat in your arteries, right? And that eventually causes those blockages. A blockage in your brain is a stroke, a blockage in your heart is a heart attack. So in medical school, I was taught that the first signs of those things, like just fatty streaks along the artery, so because it builds up over the years, can start from as early as 10 years old. So if you have your 10-year-old eating hot dogs and hamburgers every day, KFC and Chafette, on weekends, ice cream when they feel like, and you have an overweight child, you're setting that person up for potentially being a 40 something year old with a heart attack or being a 50-year-old with a stroke because it started from that age. So that's nutrition, one.
right.
Activity. Activity is very important, not
Mhm.
only for aesthetics, because people tend to only want to get in the gym for when they want to jump on the streets and crop
Crop
over
up.
or
I
look
was just
cute.
gonna say.
Maybe look cute for their wedding or
Yes,
some
yes.
event coming up that they want to fit in that dress.
Hmm.
Men not so picky. They don't mind
Yeah.
if their belly hanging over the pants.
No,
But us
not
women,
for
at
men.
least if we have a special
Occasion,
engagement
yeah.
coming up, we might start to tighten up.
Because you see a lot
So,
of women walking around crop over time, for instance, and you don't see them so much walking at the other
exactly.
times. Yes.
Exactly.
Mm,
But that is the norm here, you
yeah.
know. Plus, I think they need to get the cardiovascular health because the walk for crop over not easy. So you gotta
Okay.
prepare for that. Right. So activity goes beyond how you look, aesthetics, but that's why people do it. But in terms of your joint health, how you're able to maneuver when you get older, flexibility, your cardiovascular health as well, the ability of your heart to actually undergo strain. I'm sure most people cannot run down the road.
Well,
And
without getting out of
and
breath.
and that's because
Yeah.
they can't do it. They'll be too out of breath. It doesn't matter if they're slim or overweight.
Well,
So, activity is allowing your body to be put under the necessary stresses it needs
hmm.
to maintain health and fitness so that as your body progresses through the aging process, it does not prematurely break down on your hands. And people will not know the importance of being able to do a squat until they're 70 and they can't sit up on the toilet and get back up.
Wow.
So, get in your
Okay.
squats,
All right.
get in your activity because it goes beyond just how you're looking. You want functionality as you start to age.
Okay.
So that's
As food
two
as
things.
exercise. Okay.
So sleep is very important. And I think in this day and age, when we are now in the age of screens and screen time,
Yep.
and people falling asleep in front of televisions and watching the latest Netflix before you retire. We're disrupting our sleep cycles because there is a certain hormone that's produced at night which prepares your brain for sleeping. We tend to forget that although we can direct our body and tell it what to do and dictate where it takes us and stuff like that, it still has its own natural rhythms. It still has its own natural needs in order to function properly. So your brain is expecting that at a certain time of night, it starts to get dark. So the hormone that produced in the brain to help you prepare for sleep, melatonin is what I'm speaking of. It's produced ideally in the dark. So now we're disrupting even the natural hormones that help our brain fall into sleep. You also have to be very relaxed to have a good sleep. So you're not like falling in front of the TV. You still have all of that distracting noise and stuff in the environment. And although you might lose consciousness, that isn't meaning that your brain is able to get into those sleep wave cycles and do the appropriate amount of cycles before the alarm goes off and you have to pop back up. Now, that has implications for your brain's ability to remove waste products, for you to be able to consolidate information that you took in the day before, in terms of remembering. It also has even implications for how your blood sugar is controlled the next day and
Wow.
your cravings for things like sugars. So, sleep is very important. So, we only touched three,
Wow.
and you can see
I'm trying to pick
how
off as you
those.
go along to make sure I'm on the right track in my life. So,
Yes, so
yeah,
having good sleep
yeah,
habits
yes.
is very important for multiple reasons.
Okay.
And
I don't
the
think a lot
research
of
is
people
even going
realize
into.
that.
No,
No.
and the research is even going into if it's affecting things like Alzheimer's, because that's also in the
Wow.
rise in our population.
Yes. Yes.
That even if you get to old age and your body is fit, your mind might start to go. So we have to start to think about these things because everybody is aging.
Ah,
Everybody
yes.
is aging.
Alas. Yes.
Um, so we have to face it. We can't run from it, right? And so we want to do it as best as possible. So we spoke about three things,
Yes. So
Dawn.
that is the sleep, the exercise, and the food. So we have three more to go.
Right. So then we also talk about your relationships.
Yeah. Interesting.
So your relationships with the people who are closest to you, your relationships with the people who are at work also play a part in your health. It says people who have healthy relationships, supportive relationships, live longer and also with less chronic illnesses. They're not necessarily sure the correlation, but I think that we should know. Obviously, if you are not waking up stressed out, looking over at the person that lives with you, not happy, or you're having very tumultuous things and home is not a respite for you, and then you go to work and you're dealing with that, it's a day in, day out thing that has a direct impact on your body because then you produce stress hormones, and these stress hormones, particularly maybe cortisol, are going to impact again your eating habits, how you gain weight. You start to gain weight maybe more centrally, and just your ability to cope. So always in that fight or flight response. So you put a lot of stress on the body when your relationships aren't good, supportive, and you're dealing with that day in, day out. Now that segues really straight
Yeah.
into stress management
I was going to say that
because
sounds very much tied to stress. Your
yes,
relationships are causing you
definitely.
stress in some instances.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But so sometimes you can't really necessarily change your
This
relationship.
is true.
Sometimes you can't necessarily change where you're working or the people you work with,
Hmm.
but you can definitely change how you respond to them,
It's true.
how you're able to deal with that. Because as I delve into all the things that I've gone into in an effort to help my clients to the best of my ability,
Mhm.
I know that emotions and emotional responses are a choice. You can choose at that moment if you're going to respond in an irate manner, if you're going to allow this thing to offset your day, or if you are going to take the adult rational approach, look at things logically, especially when you're confronted with people who, as the Bajans would say, you pot don't bubble at them.
Cantankerous. Yeah.
Right? And they're their interactions with you are transient, and you can see how you can maybe get around still performing whatever you need to do and not paying them too much attention, remembering your purpose. So being mindful
Yeah.
and remembering that that person has control over you if they can control how you feel.
And I
Nobody
find
should be able to control how you feel.
sometimes that our body itself gives us signals. Like if we're interacting with somebody and we're stressed, we actually start to feel something in our neck or we start to get a headache or something like that. So that should be a sign.
Yes. And that's a choice. You
Mm,
choose to be irritated by that
true.
person.
This is very
You
true.
choose that when you see that person, like you said, you get tense
Hmm.
because you start to think all the things that that person have done up to that point that irritates you. So they're just a walking ball of problems
Wow.
because you're just remembering everything associated with them instead of dealing with the present. What they're in front of you for? Does it have something to do with work? Do not bring past, present. Deal with them as is, as need be, and don't bring your emotional history into the present moment, knowing that you are trying to evolve as a person. You're trying to manage your stress. So we get into that, like I get into that with our clients. And then
Okay.
you actively practice it in your life.
Yes.
Go out into the world and try to see if you can remain calm in the face of the people that irritate you the most. And when you can master that, that is one of the most powerful things that
And
you can have
yeah,
because you can operate under any sort of situations. And then those stress hormones that we're talking about, because that's coming when you get the texting,
yeah,
when you start to think. That isn't coming when you're looking at the person. Well, you aren't ruining my day today. I have things to do. What it is you're coming with now? No problem.
that's
You
all.
know,
Yeah.
that's a different response your body is going to have biochemically alone.
Ah,
So, right. So we have stress, we have relationships, we have nutrition, we have activity.
exercise. So we have one more to go.
We have one more. So that is your relationship with risky substances. So
Okay.
that would be the alcohol, the smoking, and whatever illicit drugs
Yeah.
people are into now that I might not be aware of. You know, pills are popping up a lot more in the younger
Oh yeah.
generation
Yeah.
than it would be in our generation. More so in our generation is drinking and smoking. We don't.
Hmm.
It didn't really extend beyond that, but no prescription medications
Uppers,
and
downers, all kinds of things.
all sorts of things
Oh,
are definitely on the streets, and our young people are definitely taking them.
wow.
So that's something to look out for in my younger patients. But alcohol and smoking is one of the biggest things in our region.
Hmm.
Women, we don't have so much of a big problem with smoking as men do. Also, women don't have much of a problem with drinking as men do,
And
but there is a big drinking culture, I guess, that happens anywhere. As soon as work is off, you head to the
hmm.
local shop, you drink a couple of
Yeah,
beers, go
you
home.
ask the men.
Definitely, if it's not during the week, it is
Fridays.
on a
Yeah.
Friday. And so the drinking is happening. And people must know that you don't necessarily have to be a quote unquote alcoholic for alcohol to be a problem, because binge drinking is a problem
Okay.
in terms of drinking a lot of alcohol at one point in
Once.
time. Even if you do it once a
Ah,
week, it wants it over the recommended amount, because alcohol after a certain level is toxic.
toxic. Wow.
That's toxic. It's a poison. Is no wonder why you feel poisoned. You can't think straight. You can't even walk straight. It's kind of like it's poisoning you after it's past the point of just loosening up your conversation and making you feel a little bit more happier than you did before. When it gets past that toxic point, it's because your liver can no longer process the alcohol fast enough that it's not affecting your brain. So that toxicity is damaging your liver. And if you're doing that every week, it's still a problem. It's still very much a problem. And so couple that now. So remembering every organ within your system, like I'm trying to bring it all together. So
Yes,
every
yes.
organ within your system is not an island to itself.
They all work.
So you binge drink alcohol on the weekend and you damage it in that way. You also stress it out by your high fat diet,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so now you have fatty liver and the liver not functioning as well because of the diet, the liver not, and every weekend you're burdening it a little bit more with the alcohol. So then now when you're moving into your 40s and your 50s, your liver enzymes might be a little bit deranged and you're remembering to your liver has a big impact on your cholesterol levels because it manufactures cholesterol. Your cholesterol high and now it not working as well as it used to be. And so remembering people, it's the day in, day out things. You might not think that once a week is too much, but once a week for the whole year, for 2 years, for five, for 10, it adds up. And so if you are doing that activity from time you were in your 20s up until your 40s, why are you surprised that your liver not working as well as it should? Why are you surprised that you now start to have high blood pressure and doctor tell you you had a mild heart attack? This activity has been happening for 20 years once a week. So we have to know, we have to connect. There's a disconnect with what we're doing, with what's happening to our bodies. But we have to reconnect it and we have to change the habits or not we're not going to be able to change this problem. And it's going to get worse because cancer is on the rise. The heart attacks and strokes are on the rise. Type 2 diabetes is on the rise. Premature death is on the rise. So most of us in the modern day are going to die before 70.
So okay, if we have not been practicing these six determinants all along the way, and say we've reached my age, which we want to talk about that
Yes.
right now, and what can we do now? Can we now start doing these things, exercising?
It's not.
Yes, so that, or even if we have already been diagnosed with one of these illnesses, can we start? Does it make a difference now at this point?
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely, Dawn. It is never too late to change because I am also keenly aware that your body is always trying to heal. It is always trying to move in the direction of better. It's always trying to correct wrongs. If you cut your finger, it's going to try to put it back together, right? So you just need to create the environment to allow your body to do what it
Kind of
does
heal
best.
itself.
And that is to make the best of
Yeah.
the situation.
Okay.
So wherever you are, you can always be definitely, definitely times better than you are at that present moment if you chart to change those certain habits that I would have been talking about. Definitely, definitely. And in even certain instances, particularly type 2 diabetes is what I would highlight. If you catch that in the early phases, you can actually reverse it, that you don't have type 2 diabetes anymore. When I started medical school, it was like when you get on diabetic medication, you diabetic for life. But now we're knowing that, like I said, you start to change the habit. The body wants to heal. You now allow it, you give it the chance. You're not flooding it with toxins every week. You're not flooding it with poor diet every day. You're not sitting down being stressed because your boss just called you into a meeting and you don't know what it is that you're talking about. You're dealing with your life a little bit better. You have those relieving outlets that you need in your life active, whether it be meditation, whether it be prayer, whether it be a social group that you get into, volunteering on the weekend, hiking. You have those things active in your life, dealing with these challenges. Best believe you are going to start to feel better. You are going to be operating better. you are going to be thinking better, you're going to be able to cope with life better. If you deal with all of those aspects, I am absolutely positive no matter where you are, you can always be better.
Amen. So that would tie into one of the questions that I have, which you have kind of touched on, the effect of on our mental and our emotional health. If you are having these chronic illnesses, how does it impact it, and how can we ensure that our health mentally and emotionally is also healing as we deal with these chronic illnesses?
Right, so that is exactly what we do at Soulfire Wellness Center.
Oh, right.
And that is exactly why lifestyle medicine was created. Because we know when somebody walks into the office, we can't just tell them, oh yes, so now you have high blood pressure, yes, now you have that. You need to stop eating this, you need to stop eating that, you got to reduce the salt, you got to start an exercise program. Okay, goodbye, see you in 3 months. This is your prescription. That does not help
Because you're now
the person.
overwhelmed. Yeah.
And you go back to life. I mean, some people get started, but there's no guidance. There's no real push to understand how you're going to integrate this new level of activity into your lifestyle,
Yes.
because you need to integrate it. It has to be the new normal. But how are you going from the way you used to do things to the way you have to do things to bring about change? And that journey is not a cookie cutter thing. You can't Google that. You have to figure that out. And so the lifestyle medicine practitioner and the stakeholders and the partners that we might employ, maybe it is a yoga teacher, maybe it is a personal trainer, maybe it is a nutrition specialist that we might employ. Right now, I am a bit of everything, but the way how that works is that look at your life.
Mm-hmm.
We figure out how are we going to get Dawn to be able to fit in the meals that she has to have. Is she prepping on the weekends? Does that work with her schedule? No, she can't. Maybe she preps better on Mondays. Okay, let's do that. Does she like eating this type of fish and not this thing? What are the nuances of your preferences and what you need to do to start setting up a new routine? Because whatever you're in your life is a routine right now. People say it's a routine. You doing the same things, you eating the same things, you every day. It's nothing new. It's just that you have to replace those what you do every day with a new set of things you do every day. And that transition is something people need a lot of support
To
through.
get done because it's
And
new. Yeah.
accountability
Yes.
to stay with it long enough for it to actually become a habit. Because it's not until then that you're going to see the benefits of the changes.
Because I would imagine, Dr. King, that if you have done something for 4 or 5 decades, all of a sudden now you have this diagnosis and you're all freaked out, but would be hard for you to change what you've done for 4 to 5 decades all along.
It is.
And especially
It is.
if your whole family is still doing it. So say you're in a family that, is still eating all the KFC, and you know that you can't, then you really wouldn't need to pay attention, I guess, and be strong mentally to see that through.
Right, that's why you need that support. You need that support. So, in the programs that we have curated at the Soulfire Wellness Center, it is really about guiding you
Hmm.
on that journey, on each of those different levels, doing a deep dive with you in terms of where your problems areas exist in each of those categories, figuring out what we're going to do so we come up with an action plan. Okay, bedtime is 10 o'clock. Before this time, we shut off screens. We're going to drink our chamomile tea before we sit down. Maybe we actually read a book, an actual book, instead of
A new book.
instead of looking at a screen. And I check in with you to make sure you're doing that. Maybe you're coping mechanism is journaling. So I say, okay, we've decided that journaling time is 5 o'clock when you wake up in the morning. Are you doing it? Are you doing it? Okay, we decided that you're going to have dinner with your husband at least once a month. Are you doing it? Are you being intentional? If so, we hold your hand through coming up with that plan, and then we are the accountability ensure that you execute
Yeah, every day.
long enough to see the benefits.
Yes.
Because when you see the benefits and you realize that you are actually thinking clearer,
Wow.
that you actually feel better within yourself, that hormonal problem that you had, like, it disappeared, and not getting the migraines anymore. So now you link all of those major changes that might have felt like somebody ripping your whole life away at the beginning. You know, linking that with how you feel now, which is better. But that takes
Time.
time.
Yeah.
And so that is why I got into what I got into.
Yeah.
Because in the normal GP practice, we do not take that time. It is what I said. You come in, so yes, definitely you have
Diagnose, you
diabetes.
get your
That's
medicine.
terrible. We give you medication. We tell you the advice, but you know you're going to have to stop using sugar. You know you're going to have to do this. And you go off into your life and you just go back to the same habits. So when I see you 3 months later as nothing has changed, what happens? I just add another medication and check you
Wow.
back.
So, Dr. King, before you go, can you touch on work-related stresses? Are you able to help your clients, and what advice can you give people that have so much stress at work? They're eating poorly, they're grabbing KFC, and they're just stressed out. Is this also impacting and leading to illnesses?
Definitely stress at work, like we would have alluded to earlier, your relationship. So you manage stress, the chemicals that are released in the
Yeah,
stressed state are not conducive to good health. So, but everything, Dawn, as I'm sure you know by now, starts with you.
that is true. That is true.
So when
We
you
have to
look
take control of
outside of
ourselves.
you
Yeah,
and you're looking for the problem outside of you, it does not exist in you, because um, there is no one that can stress you out unless you allow that.
this is very true.
It is actually impossible. It doesn't matter what they're saying to you. It doesn't matter. I'm telling you, I live to come close to that point. Close. I know I can't say perfect. Can't say perfect. Close to that point where you take it for what it is, which is information to inform your decisions.
Yes.
Whatever that person is gyrating at, whatever they're doing in front of you, whatever they're saying, you need to be mindful enough to not let your emotions come into it, because even though whatever the exchange is may be passionate from their end, they're sharing with you information which is going to inform you about something about themselves, or inform you something about yourself, something about the perceptions of others about you. But if you in the whole caught up stress out thing as well, you're gonna miss all these signs. So I work with my clients to be mindful in everything. And remember, this whole stress thing is a choice.
It is.
When you are in the middle of stress, you know everybody's done it before. I don't care what you tell me. Everybody has shut off. You know, something was like, oh, this is, oh, I see, and then you'd be like, you know what?
You shut down. Zip.
Zip. I am literally done with that. And you might go off and do something else, but it is able. You have the ability, and you might not have to run off. You have the ability to look at the situation while you're in it and say to yourself, no, this is not going to stress me out. But everything that's happening in my life is for my information. So I'm going to take whatever information this situation has for me and use it to direct my thoughts. But like I said, all of these wonderful things take time. I'm not saying that overnight you can be able to not be upset when your boss screams at you. But once you now start to be aware that it is your choice, the response, it might lessen.
Okay.
It might start to lessen. You start to move in that direction where you're able to manage your emotions a little bit better. But like I said, this is a lifetime thing. But, but it is supposed to be, because you are changing your habits from here on out.
Out
This isn't a program you're going on for 3 weeks or 6 weeks. This is to direct your approach to life,
for the rest of
to
your life.
support health, to avoid diseases. This isn't a New Year's resolution. So, what we're talking about here, even within the realms of how you relate to people at work and those workplace stresses, is a journey.
Okay.
But I've seen people evolve to that stage from being anxious at everything to being mature, because um, maturity is that ability to regulate your emotions.
Emotionally
And a lot
intelligent.
of people haven't been taught or haven't been um, directed to focus on developing maturity.
Yes. It's one of my favorite topics,
So,
emotional intelligence.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
So I would imagine, Dr.
So,
King, that this was all of this was what inspired you to start the Soulfire Wellness Center. Yes.
definitely,
So tell us more about
definitely.
that, what products and services, because we're all now excited to get into the. I think a lot of it is information and knowledge that we just simply don't
Yeah.
know. So just tell us how you can serve at your wellness center.
Right. So it was created, as I said, as a response to the crisis of chronic non-communicable diseases in our
Hmm.
community,
Okay.
and my awareness that these things are almost mostly preventable. And so that is type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, many types of cancers that are plaguing us are directly related to everyday habits. I also realized that in conventional practice, I am not as involved as I would need to be to help you make those critical changes. So it's a situation where you just come back to me 6 months down the road and yeah, you stop doing one thing, you walk around your neighborhood once or twice, but so all I was doing was writing prescriptions.
Patients. Yeah. Yeah.
So that, like I said, lifestyle
Mhm.
medicine is a new approach.
Yes.
So when I'm saying new, I'm talking within the last 5, 10 years in
Oh,
terms of
wow.
the
Really new. Yeah.
strength of the movement, getting active in terms of promoting plant-based whole food diets, normal activity, normal approach to managing stress, in that integrated holistic approach. So as I was evolving my thoughts about the approach to medicine, this thing was also evolving. So I got into it. As a result, I like I said, I was a GP at a natural medical clinic, and they closed during the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
Right before the pandemic, actually, the owner said he was closing for renovations, but that was February of 2020. And so we all know that March of 2020 is when things all went awry. So since I was doing something similar at his practice in terms of integrating a holistic approach to the patients I was seeing there, I couldn't just wait around and do nothing. And up to now, again, still hasn't reopened. So I guess that was the right move. So I founded the Soulfire Wellness Center, and I decided from the time of founding it to have a different approach to how I'm going to help our clients. So I curate health and wellness programs.
Okay.
So there are a number of set programs that you can enter in with me, that we will have specific targeted health coaching visits
Yes.
where we plan strategically how we're going to approach your change in lifestyle, and then we meet regularly to ensure that we're meeting those goals and that we are able to brainstorm what we are going to do just in case we can't because life pops up and you realize, okay, well, that was the plan, but actually that doesn't work for me. So, how do we work around that? Coupled with, like I said, since this is a holistic approach and I have a wealth of knowledge, whereas nutritional supplements and herbal remedies are concerned, based on your specific issues, I also recommend nutritional supplements or herbal remedies that helpful within your case. I realized that we need a little bit more hand holding in choosing the foods that we eat. So, integrated into the programs are also supermarket tours where we go into the supermarket and I shop with you and I show you, yes, this is what you look for, this is what we're leaving out,
Mhm.
especially based on, again, what problems you presented to me with
Okay.
based on what our first consults, you may need to start with a number of laboratory tests because we need to know what's happening. Another big problem is that we have a lot of people out there who currently have high cholesterol, who currently have high blood pressure, who currently have diabetes, and they're not aware. So, a number of screening tests are critical as you enter into the program. So, if there is something pressing, we can be dealing with it head on during the time that we're maintaining, changing your lifestyle with a focus on reversing or improving that particular parameter. So so the programs would go from just casual introduction in terms of I have an in-depth conversation with you based on what we talk about on all those levels of your life. So like after an hour and a half, I give you my basic recommendations on where you can maybe improve and maybe basic recommendations on herbal supplements that you can use to maybe help the little things that might
Okay.
be plaguing you. That's the basic. That's the first thing that we could do. If we move any further than that, you're going to need laboratory tests because I need to be informed as to your current state of
Yeah.
health. And then I can be more targeted either in the herbals or the nutritional supplements, the meal plan that I ascribe to you, and what we're going to be focusing on while we're trying to change your lifestyle. So then we have programs that can range from 3 months intensive to 6 month intensive. After that intensive period with me, we could then move on to a maintenance program where I will be checking in with you regularly, and maybe you can get your labs once a year, and we could troubleshoot as we go on. Outside of that, based on what I know about health and wellness, I've also integrated a number of specialty tests that would be able to do allergy testing and
Ah,
food sensitivity testing. So I've partnered with laboratories overseas. So we send your
wow.
samples overseas to get laboratory tests. And I have just recently onboarded new exciting genetic tests, which will inform you about your genetics and how they relate to how you might develop disease or if you might be predisposed to certain things, all of which can be add-ons to the program. Obviously, the more testing you get, the more informed I am, the better prepared we are to curate have a wellness program for you that you can really be sure that if you stick to this basically, more or less, you should be in good stead moving forward as we age because we can't avoid it. So that's what I do at So Far Wellness Center. So I do not necessarily offer traditional GP services. I do offer GP services for my clients if need be, but it's more so if we come into the wellness center, we looking to change your life. So be prepared for that.
It sounds all very strategic and very personal. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Those are the words that are coming to me as you're talking. Strategic and personal. Yes.
yes. We
Thank
need
you
to
so
have good
much.
relationships with it because it's a partnership.
Yeah.
It's not me dictating to you what I think you should do. It's what works best for you so you can be the best you. It's not me instructing harsh restrictions on you to get something because I want you to be able to sustain what we are doing. If I push too hard in one direction and you give up the whole thing, we haven't achieved anything. When I know that even if you don't go all the way that I might think you should go, if you go 70%, that's a big change within your life. Anyway, so it's not all or nothing approach here. It is it's trying to figure out what's best for you so you can do what is best for you to bring you to the best place within your life and allow your body to really enter into that phase of healing. It's almost like your body's breathing.
Ah,
Thank you for
I
allowing me
needed that.
to just catch myself. I needed that. And within the program, I have created a workbook
Okay.
that we can use as you go through the process to keep a record
How the
of
how,
how things are going. If I have a client who is really good at journaling and stuff
Mhm.
like that, making those decisions, also making an account of how you feel. Because often while we go through things, we forgot how we felt when we start.
It's true.
We forgot how we started to feel, and all of that disappears when we back in we old habits, and you don't even remember how good you felt when you were actually doing it. So it's a physical account of what you're going through and the changes that have been made.
So when we sign up with you, you give us a workbook and we work through that as we go through the process with you for the next few months. Yes?
Correct. But that workbook is only available if you do the long term, the 6 months program, because
Okay.
we know that you're serious
Yes.
and we are getting into it. And I would encourage anybody to be aware. Do not start these things unless you're ready. There needs to be some deep motivation to really make these changes, because I am keenly aware that these things that have a hold on us, like our bad habits, particularly nutrition, these things are addictive. Many of my clients are addicted to these things. And so we all know too, Dawn, about the concept of cognitive dissonance and confirmational bias and all these things. So we are going to find reasons why it's not so bad that we eat this thing that, wow, pork chop can hurt, and this thing and the next thing. So slowly ebbs at what we were trying to achieve, and you're going back to your habits. A lot of people, based on what they feel like eating, would say to me, "Well, I get that anyways." So if you got that kind of mindset, that's not.
Wow.
But that's why most people, unfortunately, only come to these things after they've had the heart attack, after they had the stroke, when they get that cancer scare, because you're now sufficiently motivated to make those changes because you feel it's urgent. But I want that sense of urgency in the 30-year-old, in the 40-year-old, so that we don't have to descend into the depths of these diseases. Even if you get it, you can stay at the level where it's not really impacting you. You don't get the worst end of the things. For instance, the worst end of diabetes is peripheral neuropathy. You might get your leg cut off. You're going to get kidney disease. You're going to have kidney failure. You're going to need dialysis. It doesn't
To
have to
get to
get
that
there.
point. Yeah.
Even if you don't completely get rid of it, you don't have to experience the worst of it.
We can help our bodies to
And
heal itself in a way.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And even if the damage is done, what I'm trying to say is that you can maybe keep a level keel instead of further descending and descending and descending until you have to experience the worst of it. Because best believe, although many people don't talk about it, they are suffering with these conditions. And so we are not aging well. And if you talk to anyone, any old person over a certain age, the conversation is predominated with their health issues.
Yes, it's true. Because I find that
What's
we don't
hurting
have
them?
health affects every single area of our lives. Is We can't escape it. We need our health.
We can't escape it. Exactly. So, yes, when you enter into the Soulfire Wellness Center
Mhm.
experience, it is definitely with purpose.
Yes,
Be purposeful, be ready,
be
be
intentional.
willing, and intentional, and know that it's not necessarily going to be an easy process at first, because breaking habits, everybody knows about breaking habits, and our dependency and reliance on these substances within our foods is real. It's not a myth.
It's true.
You really craving that chocolate.
Hmm.
Your body is sending you signals that the best thing for you to do now is to get up and order that KFC. You know you want that chocolate
Wow.
cake. That Facebook ad for cheesecake look really good. It is a compulsion.
Yes.
And so, yeah, so that's where the accountability comes in. We also, I forgot to mention, there is an app that I utilize within the programs. So, real time, you can keep me up to date. It's just snapping a picture of what you're eating. You can keep me up to date on your moods. If we're tracking specific things like your blood pressure or your blood sugar, you can also enter that into our app. So as you are moving through it, even though I'm not talking to you every day, we are constantly in link. I'm constantly being able to check where you are. And if anything is happening, or if I see anything that might be off, even if it's not necessarily our scheduled appointment, I could jump in and say, no, this portion don't look right. Yes, we agreed to do the plantains, but based on your cholesterol levels, I don't really want you to be frying them so often. I realized that you was baking them before, but now we frying them. So it is a very hands-on integrated approach through the app and through our continual process to get you to figure out what a healthy lifestyle looks like for you.
Oh, thank you. Wow. We have a lot to think about, and we
Mhm.
want to say, Dr. King, thank you so much. I have learned a
Yes.
lot, and I thought I knew a fair amount about health, but I've learned a lot this morning. And we want to thank you for educating us and encouraging us. We want to thank you for telling us about your wellness center. I hope that everybody that's listening would consider signing up. It sounds amazing because, as I said, what keeps coming out to me is that it's strategic and it's a personal approach, and there is that accountability.
Thank you for viewing. Remember to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and bookmark our websites. If you are a professional interested in contributing to the discussion, please call or email us at the contact information on your screen. Until next time, keep innovating. All the very best from the Rethink family.